Coming to you from Santa Fe, New Mexico, I am Scott Harrison, the Artistic Director of Ironweed Productions, and I want to welcome you to Talking Theater Santa Fe, formerly Talking Theater Live. We started this conversation series back in 2017, and we took a little hiatus in 2019, but now we're back in our new COVID world, doing this via Zoom, which I'm very excited about. For any of you that are joining us for the first time, Talking Theater is a series of conversations between me and Santa Fe theater artists, sharing stories about their experiences in the theater and the unique paths that led them to doing theater in Santa Fe. And I am thrilled and delighted to have as my guest today, Santa Fe actor and activist, Mary Beth Lindsey. Mary Beth, welcome and thanks so much for this conversation.
Hey Scott, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be a part of Talking Theater in COVID
Cool.
stuff.
Awesome. Awesome. For a little bit more about Mary Beth before we get into the conversation, Mary Beth, who uses she and her pronouns, was born in Dallas, Texas. Started acting at the age of 5 years old with her community theater. She was able to join a high school with a theater magnet program and continue with her community theater until she left for the College of Santa Fe in 2003. After graduating from College of Santa Fe in 2007, she participated in an acting class with Wendy Chapin in 2009 and was able to meet the heavy hitters of Santa Fe's acting pool. Some of her favorite roles post-college would be Olympe de Gouges, get that right?
Yeah, dude, you did it.
In Adobe Rose Theater's The Revolutionists 2018, with Emily Webb as a close second in Ironweed's Productions Our Town in 2012. If you came to College of Santa Fe's production of Chicago in 2007, you witnessed Mary Beth as Mama Morton, which she played on the heels of Lenny from Crimes of the Heart that spring. Beyond the leading roles, there have been many supportive roles in ensemble casts that Mary Beth has performed. Being an actor has helped her into her day job as an education and prevention specialist with Solace Crisis Treatment Center. Mary Beth goes to middle schools in the area and speaks about rigid gender roles, rape myths, consent, and victim blaming. With a major in theater, she's had to learn a lot about sexual violence and the systems in place that allow it to continue. Being part of the solution is a very invigorating feeling and also a stark reminder that this is a long game. It has brought to light her passion for social justice issues, and she now plans to use any platform she may have in the future to educate others on how we as community members can prevent sexual violence. Mary Beth, welcome and thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.
I thought I would dive into I always like to kind of journey back to the beginning, and you and I have actually exchanged a couple of photos from our early performing arts days.
That was fun.
Yeah. And you sent me this awesome photo of you in maybe your first production in an original play called Kittens that is a takeoff of Cats. You were 5, I believe.
Yep.
Anyway, tell me about that experience and what that was like.
Well, that was my second play, Scott. And I know that, some people think, oh, she's been acting since she was 5, like, oh, TV commercials and stuff. But no. This is like stage theater, like theater acting. That is where, and it was a community theater, and it was the most awesome thing. I had no idea I wanted to do it. I'm going to show a little quick picture. Let's see if we can even see.
Ah, there it is.
Hey, that's me in the white right there. And it was an adaptation off of, right? Like, and so it was, just a cute little local playwright who also is a musician and put some songs. And they made this this theater used to be called Richardson Children's Theater. That person in the photo actually was an old school friend of mine who had a birthday party at RCT, I guess like a few months before that. photo was taken, and I went, and I just, something happened. It just like clicked. You know, the smell of a theater. There's something like only actors or crew members or production or producers, you know, everybody who's involved in theater, like that, because it's so many moving pieces, right? The huge Titanic that is a show. But people who really can appreciate the smell of a theater. I don't know, something clicked right when I was in that theater. We got to go into the green room. They had costumes in there, and then we got to put on a costume. Then we got to go on the stage, and they even taught us a little bit about stage directions. Of course, I really didn't know what was right or left at that age, but that's what helped me to learn what right or left is, and even lines. So my first play was A Christmas Carol. That, you know, shortly after that party, got to do A Christmas Carol. It was just a quick, cute little song for the 5 to 6-year-olds to sing, and they had a line each. My mom used to help me when I didn't know how to read, she would just tell me my lines, and then I would, you know, recite them back. Funny enough, that is not how I like to learn lines as an adult. I really am not that kind of learner. Nothing wrong with that kind of learning. Everybody's got their own way, but I can't really do it. My auditory is not as awesome as my visual learning now, but it is, it's a very cool that my mom was so supportive. My family was so supportive of just putting me into this theater. My mom actually got a job as a box office manager at that theater to help pay for the workshops, because they call them workshops, for the kids to be in these shows. And I literally did RCT, and they changed the name to Repertory Company Theater years later. And then when I was 16, I was in their company, and, you know, they just have main stage shows, and they'd pick from their company who they'd want for each role. And then I would end up teaching those 5 to 6-year-olds that used to be me.
Nice.
And there's different staples of RCT kids that really got their beginning with theater through RCT, and it's still running today in Richardson, Texas, and it's a wonderful theater. I learned all the basics there. So.
That's great. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, how cool. And how did you, one thing like I'm always interested in with people, their theatrical journey is just kind of what drew them to how their initial way in, what really drew them to that, or what really got them jazzed about that. Like I know for me, like I didn't discover theater until I was in college, and I had been, well, I still am. I was just painfully shy growing up, and when I was growing up, it was just, if you were shy and you were quiet, you were weird, or there was something wrong with you, or whatever. And so I found, like, when I got into college and I discovered theater through this great intro to theater teacher that I had, that working on a character in rehearsal and performance for me was like the first time I felt like I was being my fullest self, and like parts of myself that would never really see the light of day, I got to let out. And so for me, that was my initial draw into theater, was being able to just express parts of myself that I really never could. For you, like, because you're as an actor, and I know you got started very early, but was there something about the experience of acting for you that just made it so, what was it that made it so exciting? Oh, I think we're good.
Are we good?
Yep, we're good. We're back.
The Zoom COVID interview.
We're back. Well, yeah, it's part of the experience. Yeah, that's right. Is she contemplating, or is she frozen?
Yes. I'm here. I'm glad we're good. I think it was just a quick one.
Yeah. So so I was just checking in on what for you was kind of, what for you made acting such an exciting thing to do when you were growing up?
That's where I met my most friends.
Huh.
Like I said, I grew up in Richardson, Texas, went to all the elementary, junior high, and high school that I was supposed to go to. And I just really didn't have very many friends in school. I just kind of was a different person. I'm just like I've been a fun, hyper person, and also very shy. So like an introverted, extroverted kind of person. So when I found RCT at such a young age, it was like, through elementary school, through junior high, through high school, I had it. It was kind of like the one place where also I could feel completely myself, and I felt around the other people who were doing it. Just we had a like-mindedness, and I remember this one memory. It was Little Women. It was also written and composed by the woman who had written Kittens. Her name is Kitty Beletic, and she's a lovely woman. And so they had written a rendition of Little Women, and it was these 8 to 11-year-olds. This is that age group I'm in at this time.
Yeah.
And it was about Amy March. And so Amy was one of the company members, and the rest of us sang a song. And I was in the B group, and then there was an A group. So I got 2 shows out of a weekend, and then the other group got 2 shows. So we were split on 4 shows the weekend. And I got to play Charlie. And Charlie was the one who was a schoolboy who falls in love with Amy, in schoolboy love. And I was so excited because I had no representation of anything gay in my life. In Texas in 1990, probably 93, 94. So like, I had no idea why I was so excited to be like playing this part of that. The song was literally like, kiss him, Amy, Charlie. And it's like, they're like pushing us together. And I'm like, no. I'm like, yes. But of course I was still playing like a boy. But it was that show that I remember like standing and singing. We weren't in very much of the show. When you were in those group workshops, you were in like a couple songs and then out. And I just remember in those couple seconds, like really getting this feeling of like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is Friday night. It's the weekend. I'm on stage. Hell yeah. I just remember like 8-year-old Mary just thinking that there was something about being in front of people, because I hadn't really learned yet about developing a character.
Mm-hmm.
It was really more so learning the basics of stage directions, learning the basics of your lines, learning theater etiquette, which was awesome. I think everybody should learn that stuff because anyway, but that was more so that. So it was I've had like these different waves of I would say when that time, like being so excited to be in front of people and be in a show and learn my lines and have this character and have my friends that I spend time with, it just kept me involved. And what's nice is when I ended up transferring to the high school I graduated from, because I mentioned earlier I didn't really fit in with the other people went to into those schools. I was in this Richardson High School theater magnet program where I made like instantaneously best friends, and just, it was so alive, such a diverse population too. And it was the first time like I finally felt like I fit in that city, as well as starting to learn more and more. I was at the age of like learning more and more about character development and learning about relationship, because that was something I really had struggled with when I got into college, like relating to your other actor on stage. We definitely went over that at RCT. I just don't think it clicked for me until a little later in my life. And so once I was in high school and into college, it was like, oh my gosh, like when you have those moments where you're so scared to show you're vulnerable. I actually had this acting class from my teacher, Claire Davidson, where she had us all sitting down, and I was supposed to do some scene with some guy. And she finally said, Mary Beth, do you have a brush? And I was like, yes. And she was like, get that brush out of the purse and have him brush your hair. And so she was like, close your eyes and just let the line come out. Just let it come out. And it was the first time that I was actually like being told, like, you are enough as you are. Yeah. And that's what we want to see in this character. And the difference, and I remember talking to my friends afterwards who, because we all watch each other, because you learn that way with acting as well. And just my friends afterwards being like, oh, it was so soft. You were so vulnerable. And this other side of you came out. And that was a side I was really scared to show. Like in general, I had a lot of walls. And so that was something that was penetrated by acting. And so then there was again another wave of like, yeah, like this is what I do. Like, I love this. I'm a vessel and I love being an actor. So
that's such a, yeah, That's such a great lesson, and that realization, like you said, of you know, you're enough. I mean, as a theater person, or just as a person in general. Like I remember in your bio, you mentioned Wendy Chapin, who I just think the world of, and we both taken classes with her, and she's directed an Ironweed production, and I remember that's the first time I heard that that phrase, just of you're enough. You need to, and I remember like it's interesting, like you were talking about your experience with Claire Davidson. I remember in college in grad school, when I was in grad school at ART, we would have these different small chunks of classes, like little 6 weeks blocks with different instructors. And one of the classes we took was a class in clowning. And I remember thinking like I was petrified about the class because I thought, oh my God, this is going to be like you have to be wacky and you have to be funny. And I was like, I like improv classes always kind of terrified me. And anything where I felt like I was supposed was going to have to be funny, which of course I learned in improv, that's not what it's about either. But with the clown class, it was like, it was a class that was all about being super, super vulnerable. It was just about like, the show's falling apart and there's the clown who's there who's going to try to just do what they can to to connect with the audience and keep them engaged when everything else is falling apart. It was that, but it was ultimately about that thing of like you're enough. And I that was where I discovered yeah, that idea that oftentimes with acting you can kind of layer over things like, oh, I just need to be this, I need to create this physicality, I need to create this voice, I need to, when often, like you say, if you're just encouraged to just let yourself come out, it's really powerful. And I think it's just such a powerful lesson in general for people to know that, yeah, you're enough as you are. Yeah, that's
Right.
great.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
When
interesting.
you go, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to think about, I was just going to say, like, I was in this, I know, that I think you know Peter Zapp.
Yeah.
He directed me in, oh no, I'm sorry. He watched me and Come Back to the Five and Dime Jimmy Dean, which Claire directed me in. And then he got to direct me in Baby with the Bathwater right after it as the nanny. And he had a evaluation for me because I was a Bachelor of Fine Arts student. So they had evaluations every quarter. And a lot of people didn't want to give me my BFA because I was so musical theater-esque, but musical theater is so potent when somebody is really real singing those notes. Like I was like still like, just like you said, like adding layers and making it a little bit more complicated for myself, pushing and trusting that my body was like enough, that right away, like my force is recognized right when I walk on stage. Like that's it. Like all I have to do is talk. And so there was a lot of people at the who kind of voted against me having my BFA, but then there were other teachers who were like, yes, give her this, she is focused, like go. And so I was able to have this evaluation with Peter, who said, I just really remember it. And it was saying, it was written, he went over it with me, but it was, I found myself wanting to shout from the audience, watching Mary Beth playing Juanita and Come Back to the Five and Dime Jimmy Dean, like, don't pretend to sweep, actually sweep. And it was, he could just see through me sweeping. And, we've all seen that person who is doing something that they're not really fully invested in. And I'm still guilty of having moments of not, really doing. And so that was, just another moment of saying, like, we want to see you, Mary Beth. We want to see how Mary Beth is Juanita sweeping,
Right.
we want to see that. And that is, it's just been like, you had helped me with that as well with Emily Webb and the Act 3, and just letting me discover the moments when they came through for that huge monologue, where it's like the monologue everybody knows about that show. And it's like, but it's going to be different because I'm doing it as just who I am.
Mm-hmm.
To trust what I discover from your, direction that gave me safety and warmth. To find that is those moments of just like, yes, like everything. It's like the chakras aligning. Like
Right.
Lisa, you're
Yeah, totally.
Lisa. shared the awesome photo of her student show the other day. And it's like when the chakras just like line up, it's like, that's how I feel after like a moment on stage where it's like, damn, like I feel it in my energy, you know, like it
Yeah,
is. And that sounds a little selfish or self-absorbed, but that's even with another actor, you
right.
know, with, you know, like when you're having that moment and you're having that exchange, like that's not just me, like that is,
Yeah.
you know, that's fire. So that's been, yeah. And I would say Wendy Chapin also, like, dear God, you know, like after graduating from college and like not really knowing what I was doing, you know, like finding my wings and her class and just getting to meet all of you who were just like so excellent, but we all had more to go into and to more to find and to share of our authentic selves. That was just so special to be a part of. And classes are just, you know, they're so raw. They
Yeah,
they bring out that rawness. And
totally.
yeah.
That's what, yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, I'm curious. I'd love to hear more. Just talking about these theater experiences for you that were really transformational. Um, Talk a little bit about the Revolutionists and why that was such a powerful experience for you.
Oh, where do I begin? So let me start at the beginning really quick.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this in a good way. I swear it. We were closing Santa Fe University of Art and Design. Amanda, my partner, my fiance, and I were living on campus, helping close the school. And so we were literally thinking like, we're gonna move to Denver. That's what's happening next. We're going to Denver. It's happening. Like Santa Fe's been great. We'll probably come back, but we're going to Denver.
Huh.
We really went. Nowhere can you buy, like, get an apartment, rent an apartment where you can have more than, you know, 2 pets, and we have 3. So it was like, okay, well, that's done, you know. And it ended up just not working out, right? Or like whatever we were looking for wasn't working. And then around that time, I got an email or a message, and it was Maureen messaging me saying, "Hey, I'd love for you to audition. You know, like if you wouldn't mind, here's the script." And so I read it, Scott, and it was like, oh my gosh, like this is so hilarious. Like there's like just so witty and funny, and it's a female cast, and there's just rare shows where it's not, there's just so many different levels that were addressed in Revolutionists, like not just a happy, not just sad, but you know, just like everything. Like, you know, that's a great show. We can have all the aspects of humanity, or a few that are really gonna kick in. Anyway, fun tip that I just wanted to mention too, my debut in Death of a Salesman, or not debut, but you know what I mean, my cameo in Death of a Salesman actually made Maureen like ask about me. I think she messaged you or wrote you and was like, who played this lady?
All right, we are back. We had a little bit of an internet problem there. This is the magic of live theater on Zoom, actually. So
Yeah.
this is awesome. This is so we're back on. Mary Beth, you were talking about. I'll just give a little bit of a lead in, but you're talking
Sure.
about the Revolutionists. You and Amanda were thinking about you and your fiance Amanda were thinking about going to Denver after the closing of SFUAD.
Squad.
But you got this amazing script from Maureen McKenna called The Revolutionists, and you read it and just loved it.
Oh my gosh, I loved it so much. And she had told me we were going to have a guest director who ended up being Lindsey Hope Perlman, who was fantastic to meet and work with. And I hadn't done a show at Adobe. I'd seen one show that I think Wendy actually directed. You weren't in it though, were you? The Good Things, Good Place, Good
Oh,
Place.
the good people. Oh,
Yep, the something.
oh yeah, yeah.
But Adam Harvey was in it, and Sabina.
Oh, you're the yes. No, the first show at Adobe Rose. I remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, the name's escaping me, but it, you know, so I hadn't really been around, and I had just hadn't been in there focusing on Santa Fe, leaving Santa Fe, blah blah blah, you know, moving on, and which I also like really had to pay my like amends to Santa Fe. Like I was like, Santa Fe, listen, like please forgive me. I didn't mean to talk any smack about you, because you know the Santa Fe pull is a real thing, and push. And but Amanda and I, like, it was around the time we were like looking for where we were going to live next and where we were going to settle down. And we didn't have anything, like our families are here. Like my mom is in Jemez Springs, her family's down in Hobbs, which is 5 hours south. and my sister and my father at the time, they live in Dallas, you know, so it was just like, it's better to be here, you know, because we're so close to everybody. Denver wasn't too far away, but it wasn't like something like a job we were given. So there was really like no driving force. And that's around the time this play pops into my life. I read it, I go audition, and I'm like, man, I really hope I get that part. I find out in the summer, like later in the summer, that I got Olympe de Gouges, was cast as Olympe de Gouges. And so I ended up moving up here and living with a friend who at College of Santa Fe, who was our registrar, Mary Angel. I ended up living with her for a month while rehearsing. And it was so incredible. I've never, other than college, I really haven't had the experience of rehearsing in the daytime. And because of
Oh, uh-huh.
day jobs and really loved it. I just got to, I didn't have a job. I was looking for jobs, but my internet connection is unstable. Oh no. Okay, so tell me if I freeze.
You're so good. You're so good.
Zoom live. Okay, so we're moving. Anyway, so I lived with a friend through rehearsals, and the whole process, it was just like real women's stories where, you know, we get into this part where as white women, their stories are told more from history, not as much as white men, but we hear more about white women's stories than we do of any women of color stories. We don't have very many female playwrights. Most playwrights who are writing, it's more, you know, it's expanding more and more to be people of color who are writing and that gaining traction, which is so important because stories need to be told and representation needs to be there. And this play had 3 women from the French Revolution, Olympe de Gouges, Charlotte Corday, and Marie Antoinette, and their stories. And then she made up a character, the playwright, Lauren Gunderson, made up a playwright, needed to be played by an African-American woman. The character's name was Marianne from the Caribbean, because my character, Olympe de Gouges, was very much an abolitionist at the time, very trying, you know, to say how slavery was wrong. So she was a little bit of a feminist in her time. And the men at the National Assembly had just, and during the French Revolution, had just asked for, you know, freedom to be self, you know, say what they want to say, be who they want to be, have these certain rights. And basically Olympe de Gouges just switched pronouns. I mean, she wrote a little bit more than that, and asked for women to also have that same luxury and have those same rights. And that was too far. That was the reason one of the reasons she was executed. And I would not have known those stories if it wasn't for this play, you know? So then really getting to have the story of what happened and then to have a modern twist put on the lines so that the audience can receive it in the best way, where it's like we're hearing our language of 2018 right now, like that's the year we did it, of everyday language, but they're talking about things that took place so long ago. I love work like that. If I get the opportunity to play Olympe de Gouges again, I will take it, because it is any role in the show actually, but Olympe I do have a soft spot for, because it's just being a female writer. She was a female writer, and just she was single. She had married when she was younger, and she divorced her husband, or her husband actually died. Sorry, they didn't divorce. And she did not wed again because she wanted her independence. So she was just a very forward-thinking kind of gal. And those stories are so embedded in so many different cultures and so many genders, non-genders, whatnot, that we need to keep sharing, that's going to keep theater going, right? Evolving. And so I'm like getting like chills talking about that damn show. I just love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, that was just such a powerful, powerful production. And you and Maureen and Danielle, and is it Adrienne? No,
Ariana.
Ariana, sorry, Ariana. And with it was Lindsey's direction. It was just such a powerful show. And I remember feeling like after I saw your performance, like I told my wife Lisa, like I was just like, I felt like your words and were just coming from like the center of the earth. I mean, they were just it was so powerful, and really cool to hear just your journey with that play and how that came about. I mean, it's just funny how these opportunities happen and you never know. Yeah, you never know where the journey is going to lead.
You never know. And it's, it just isn't, yeah, I very much listen to the universe and like
Yeah.
as much as I can. I just do it as much as I can. And it was very much like, here's this play. I was like, oh, there's no way. There's no way I could pass this up. And then soon after that, it was Romeo and Juliet, and Patrick Briggs was mentioning, hey, we're gonna have these auditions. We'd love for you to audition for the nurse. And it was like, what? Olympe de Gouges followed by the nurse? Okay, because I had played the nurse in college in a scene study class and with Claire Davidson. And that's also a role that I can see that I will play. I was a young nurse this time, and I more than likely could play an older nurse as I age. And I also like really love that about I'm lucky because I learned in college that I was always going to be that lady who plays roles that are kind of older. There's a matureness to me. There's just a certain way that we look at different women and what my type is. And I just really, I think that quickly I was able to figure out like, oh wait, I'm not one of those women that's gonna like lose her looks and then lose her like luck. Like it's like that sometimes ingenues were placed, that was maybe like an outdated mentality. It's shifting as well. But like as I age, like I'm gonna continue to find roles that I'm really gonna love to encompass and get into, because as my life experience continues, I'm 35, I'm not shy, I'll tell you. I feel great to be 35. I'm like, hell, 35 and alive, baby. And it's, learning and
Nice.
life experience. I'm just so grateful for this journey I'm on. Anyway, so I was lucky to play the nurse right after, and I think the
Yeah,
nurse will be I play later in life as well.
that's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking, it's really fascinating hearing about your journey with the revolutionists. And it makes me think about your current journey with your job that you've been in, well, in about a year and a half now with Solace Crisis Treatment Center, which
Right.
came about because you're an actor. So I'd love to hear that story about how this opportunity with Solace came about for you, and also if you could just tell us more about Solace and what you all do.
Oh, perfect. Yes, I would love to. So Solace Crisis Treatment Center is Santa Fe's Rape Crisis Center. We serve Santa Fe, Los Alamos, Espanola, Taos. They have their CAV, Community Against Violence, but very a lot. And did I say Las Vegas? We also serve Las Vegas. So we serve these northern populations as the Rape Crisis Center. So when you hear Rape Crisis Center, you think, oh, somebody who's been sexually assaulted and is in crisis and needs help now. And yes, definitely, that is our agency, and we have a 24/7 crisis hotline worked by our victim advocates. It could be something that happened recent, it could be a memory that has come back from a long time ago, because that happens too. And but that hotline is always available. And that number, well, you can find information on that at findsolace.org. The number is also 505-986-9111. Now, with the agency, we have our victim advocates who are just rock stars, superstars. They've been working this entire time during COVID, nonstop. Forensic interviews continue. Yes, you may have heard in the news that domestic violence, cases of domestic violence and intimate partner violence are expected to rise, are rising due to the lockdown. I'm sure there's a bunch of numbers that we have not heard yet also because of the lockdown. And it's just not as simple as just not reporting, or getting away from somebody. It's just not as simple. And I had to learn all that. We have a clinician department, which is therapists, People can go see therapy, go have therapy done, as long as they've had some sort of form of sexual violence in their past, or witnessed or been a part of a violent crime. They can be seen by our therapist without any health insurance and no cost to the client or survivor as well. And then they have my department, which is education and prevention. And so Clark, he is the education and prevention manager. Lucky for me, I met Jess 10 years ago after I graduated from College of Santa Fe in 2007. It was when I was working at the brewery and going on Tuesday nights to go listen to like the guys from D Numbers spin at the Cowgirl. And it was like Jess Clark, Megan Dom and I just like hanging out. So I had met Jess then. And then, Santa Fe, like different parts of lives, always, loved seeing him. But we never really hung out very much. And it was literally after the second weekend of Revolutionists, we had gotten, we actually found this place. This is our bedroom. Here's my bedroom, and this is man in my bedroom. And while I was living with Angel doing Revolutionists, we were actually lucky enough that a friend of ours had a mutual friend who had a place opening up, and that was this home. So we were able to move in right after second weekend of Revolutionists, or maybe it was after the opening weekend. So I was able to move into a home, and that was awesome. And then I was like, okay, now I just need a job. That's it. And then it'll happen. Just gotta keep looking. It was like he messaged me and said, hey, what's your job sitch at the moment? Feel like teaching about preventing sexual violence? I'm convinced that we need an actor for this job. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I am jobless at the moment. This couldn't come at a better time. And the description just really spoke to me, Scott. It was like, oh yeah, I totally could do all of this. Oh my gosh. And it's basically going into middle schools, talking to the hardest audience ever. And that's because, they're going through one of the hardest times ever. And the 7th and 8th graders who are figuring out their bodies and everything else. And yeah, we get told the puberty talk and sex talk. And, when I did it, when I got to do it, it was girls here, boys here, and some schools still do that. Mm-hmm. Is progressive enough that, and actually New Mexico, not all of New Mexico, but there are definitely parts of New Mexico where we're allowed to go into the schools and talk about what sexual violence is. Because people just hear sexual violence, they think rape, right? Yes, rape is a part of sexual violence. However, there are a lot of other parts to sexual violence other than just rape. So just to explain what that is, how sometimes rigid gender norms can be a reason why we bully people, and we expect people a person who looks like a guy to be a guy, but it's we're putting onto them what we think they look like, instead of just understanding that the way things used to be are not a good way for us to keep continuing life. And if we can point out the man box, we do a version of the gender activity box where it's the boys and girls, and talking about what toys are for boys, what toys are for girls. Clearly everything is a little bit different now, right? But it used to be so rigid, and that rigidity is continuing this form of bullying, this form of homophobia, transphobia. It is continuing to keep people in this place where they're not safe, where trans kids maybe can't feel safe to go to the bathroom. And to be able to go into the school and start to talk about the roots of where this comes from. It's for their little minds, I'm saying little because they're still developing, but they're young adults, their minds are taking this in, and to have vocabulary, to have somebody come in who's not a parent, who's not a family person, a neutral person come in and talk about this part. So I do the, talking about gender roles and victim blaming. And then I also talked in 8th grade about victim blaming and consent. So I'm in the beginning of the week with Solace at all the different middle schools around town. Planned Parenthood comes in the next 2 days, and they talk about more of the specifics, like sexually transmitted infections, and also the dangers of the internet. And Resolve, where Scott works, they come in the last day, and they kind of talk more so about relationships and when somebody, oh, I loved once hearing Amber teach Scott, and I like loved it so much, especially being an actor. But it's like when we're told no, do we accept the rejection?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was like, accept the rejection. Oh my God. Like that should be a mantra, even though it sounds negative. But at the same time, rejection's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're teaching young men that, yeah, man, just go for it, because the movies, nobody ever asks for a kiss. I start to teach actually to the young people. I'm like, yeah, we're not seeing the consent usually happen in the movies, but that consent is taking place off screen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they are finding out how each actor, if matches like the cinematographer and DP's view of how they're gonna, but they're checking in actor to actor also about like, hey, I'm gonna do this to that, or we hope, we hope they are. I would be the actor to ask for that, but it's definitely just to know what I'm about to expect, and so the consent is happening, even not, but we don't always see representation of consent. Sometimes we also hear consent, we think sex, but really consent can be, hey, can I pet your dog?
Right.
Or like, hey, mama, can I have $20 instead of just going to grab the $20? So I'm really lucky that I get to teach this. I feel very moved to be able to teach this part about how sexual violence comes about, so that I could possibly be a part of preventing it, because 86% of the time, it is not that rapist in the van that assaults someone. It is 86% of the time somebody the victim knows.
Yeah.
So when we don't see that on TV, when people, they don't know what's happening to them is wrong because they don't know, I get to be that person that comes in and says it. Yeah. And sometimes we do get disclosures, and we have a certain protocol we follow.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a really great, Sex Health Week is really great, because if they don't like what I'm saying, everything kind for the grades and all three agencies that come in. So maybe they didn't like me so much because personalities don't mesh for everybody. But they may really love Amber from Resolve. And so then they were able to like maybe ask a question they didn't want to ask to Amber. So it's kind of like a really cool way, like that we as agencies trying to prevent violence can come together and try to like have this conversation and make this conversation start. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, that's really powerful. And I know I feel hugely fortunate that your and my paths crossed in this other cool way around violence prevention. Getting to starting to work with Resolve full time in January, which is a violence prevention nonprofit, and and to be part of the Sexual Health Education Week, working with seventh and eighth graders. Just really, I mean, I feel the same way, just very meaningful. And it's interesting. A lot of what we do at Resolve is around experiential role play work. So for me, it's been interesting too to have that piece as an actor. You're bringing in, you're trying to create a scenario for students that seems realistic, and then also working as a teacher, kind of thinking about, well, what does this student need in this particular scenario, and how do we kind of, working with the lead instructor who's a female, how do we kind of lead the student toward what we need to teach them in this scenario? So yeah, it's been really heartening for me to be part of this whole effort, and to learn too about how you came to it. Again, I just think there's that thing where things happen for a reason.
Right? Yeah, and oh, sorry, keep going.
No, and it just I'm just in these conversations too. It's just always fascinating with me, just the different little threads, that we follow and where they take us. And
right.
Can you just if folks are interested, I know you mentioned it, but folks are interested in either supporting Solace or utilizing the resources, just give the information again.
Yeah, that's going to be Find Solace, like to find solace. Something is a findsolace.org nonprofit, so it's got that .org happening, and it is there we have donation opportunities because we are a nonprofit running on grants, federal grants as well. So if anybody has, Giving Tuesdays will be coming soon, and so that could be something as a donation, but also we have volunteer opportunities with our 24/7 crisis hotline. We train our advocates so that, just like Scott and I, where maybe we didn't have this experience of learning all of this, because we both definitely went to school for theater. It's a very cool opportunity though, because the training will make somebody who hasn't even had any past experience with working a hotline or a crisis hotline to have the tools to be able to refer people to where they need to go. And sometimes people are looking for those volunteer opportunities that, especially right now during COVID, where you want to feel safe. This one is typically over the phone. Sometimes we are advocates during sexual assault nurse exams where we go to the hospital, at Christus St. Vincent's. Of course, during this time, advocates are not allowed into the hospital, which is a shame, but at the same time, safety for all. And so volunteer opportunities would be something very meaningful, I think, and also to be able to do it from home and on the phone. It's just a nice thing to know. Yeah. I never volunteered at things. And when I went to the training, when I first started, I was like, you people are volunteering for this? Like, that's incredible. Like I just want to say, like, thank you. Like, I'm getting paid for this, but like, thank you. And actually, our volunteers who we're like, we so need and so blessed to have. They are just, the heartbeat, because sometimes people just need to talk to somebody. And that's so anyway, there's a bunch of training for that. And but that you can find that opportunity, that information on the findsolace.org website, and that 24/7 hotline is 505-986-9111.
Great. Thanks, Mary Beth.
Sure, my pleasure.
What I'd like to kind of just wrap our conversation up with is just a conversation around, I'm curious your thoughts on, this period with COVID and the different things that have come out of this period. It's interesting when I think about it as a theater person, I think I'm definitely not of that mindset, and I know there is that mindset of like when we emerge on the other side of this cloud, this COVID cloud, there is that mindset of, oh, we just need to get back to it, just get back. And I know from the beginning, I've just felt this really strong sense of, I want to just kind of breathe and kind of take breath and see where things are as we're moving through this, and take a breath and see what things look like on the other side of this, to kind of be open to the moment in terms of what live theater might look like on the other side of this, what stories might be most important or most meaningful at that time, and how we tell those stories, how that may be different from the way we've done it to this point. So I just wonder for you, Mary Beth, in this time too, as a theater artist and as an activist, how is this time resonating for you, and what kind of things would you like to see as we kind of move through, or we move on the other side of this pandemic that we're all experiencing?
It's interesting. It's like I have several thoughts happening at once right now, of course. First, I will say that Amanda and I have been watching different TV shows or movies, and every time I think coronavirus could easily be transmitted, like people crammed into an elevator, I go, coronavirus, and I just like sing it. There's like so many everyday moments that will never feel like the same, and so just like moments of like, oh, you could catch corona that way too. And so I think it's going to be interesting because like for that aspect, like group settings, like everything's going to be different, because I don't think it's going to be like when we get out on the other side, y'all, it's going to be great. I think we're going to live through this and learn how to live with these masks, learn to live with these new precautions. And hey, like it's not that bad. Like in the sense of like, if we're healthy, right? Like if we're still being healthy, protecting others, protecting ourselves, we can do this, but I wonder, like, being able to go see a play, I'm already missing it. And being able to, and going to see music, going to the movies. It's pretty cool how drive-in movies are coming back. I'm very excited about that. I saw that you and Lisa went, didn't y'all?
It was excellent. Yeah. Saw La La
Cool.
Land. Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, La La Land. Okay, yeah, we're gonna have to go. So that's pretty cool how we're doing that, and how they've even brought out different movies early. It is gonna be so strange with theater because I have seen different scenes like where different productions are starting to film again and they have masks, and it's like, man, like that's so much trust that you're having to give to everyone in that space. I'll be honest, I'm doing a film acting class with Laura Cunningham. She's awesome, love it. We were about to start up our class again because we were in the middle of an 8-week class and have 3 more sessions right when COVID hit. So she's going to work with me to be able to do this virtually because it was, she had everything very, very well set up that it was like, the only person who won't be wearing a mask will be the person acting. And I just got in my head about so many different ways of like, well, if the room doesn't have good filtration, like how is like the next person doing their scene not breathing it in, and luckily she listened to me and was very receptive and sweet, and she's going to work with me virtually, which kind of sucks because, I'm finally taking this class, but at the same time, it's like, it's okay. Like, this is what we need to do right now. So I guess like, I don't know. Like I'm like the Fiesta Melodrama, they've just been filming their stuff. And I'm like, man, y'all, that's so much trust. Way to go. Like that is, and thank you. Cause now I got something fun to watch, so it's like, it's a benefit, but to sit in an audience to, like if you're on the front row, that actor is spitting, that is coming right there. Or I usually am the spitter, just to say that I'm the spitter. I'm really trying to enunciate my words, and I'll get really, into something and may spit. And it's like, how is that going to happen? Are we going to have the splash zone plastic up on the front row and like have an actual fourth wall for theater or not? And I think I haven't even been able to wrap my brain around how this is going to happen. I think that what I've learned a lot through COVID, through Black Lives Matter movement, that has been around for a very long time, but is now getting all this traction, is how important stories need to be told from every perspective. Because even though we're all dealing with COVID, not all of us are in the same boat. A lot of us have privilege that others don't. And if we have health insurance, we have privilege that others don't. And so if we're going to move forward with telling these stories, I think it needs to be the voices from the margins that are really leading some different perspectives, because obviously white supremacy has been a big part of how theater has been run. If we think about how long it took for anybody of color to be able to finally be able to act all over the globe, right? With Sidney Poitier, like really being like the first man of color to like finally come in and be accepted on stage. And we're still growing. And I think that theater is always a great place to push the boundaries that people may have set, and to open up minds. And so however we're going to move forward with acting and in public, it's like, is it all going to have to be outdoor theater? Like, is that how we're going to have to do this? Like, and it's in Santa Fe, that won't work so many months of the year. And I'm just really curious to see the different creative ways that people, just like eating on the patios, and people have started to do, which I have not done, but I know people do feel safe enough to do that. And yeah, I don't know. The question has me interested now and intrigued to see, what do you think? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, I think there's an aspect of, I think it's been really, exciting, and to see what people have done, video wise. And I know people are, and theaters are dependent, a lot of theaters are dependent on that. I mean, Ironweed, we're very fortunate in that we don't have a space, so we don't have to pay rent, theaters that own a space and they have to pay, they have rent to pay, and have to find programming in the midst of which they've found some really creative way and innovative ways to do that, which I hugely applaud and I've really enjoyed. I also think, it's just interesting to continue to think about how do we find a way to manifest the live experience, even if it's in a smaller, intimate thing, because that's just such an important part of, I mean, I realize that when I'm with we've been with, socially distanced with friends recently, but I just realize how important that is, just to be in the same place and exchanging the energy in the cells, just exchanging that energy with a person when you're in their presence is
Yeah.
and I realize it's so much more now, is so different than, yeah, being on a FaceTime or being on a Zoom. And I just think it'll be interesting to think about, yeah, how do we kind of create those live person-to-person experiences, even if they're maybe in a smaller group or outside or whatever, to kind of
Yeah.
keep that piece of theater, which is, to me, is just the magic of it, is just you're sitting across from a live body and you're totally engrossed in their story. Um, and those moments too, I feel like for me, the most powerful moments I've ever been like on stage or in an audience are those moments where there's that silence where that everyone in the theater is resonating around the same thing. Um, that
Yeah.
there's some
Yeah.
universal thing that moment is tapped into, that everyone is experiencing. Anyway, yeah, I think
Yeah.
it'll
Yeah.
be fascinating to see how we continue to navigate through this.
I'm
But
sorry, I'm cursing. I just said the D word. I don't think I cursed any worse than the D word.
that's all right.
Well, because I mean, like you were just saying, like the Zoom calls, like I don't know, I've caught myself going to wash my hands after a Zoom call, thinking I was just like with the person, and
Right.
it's
It's
gonna
very
take like we've been trained now to like be so careful, and now like how do we have, because we need that as humans,
right.
we need this interaction, to witness interactions, to see the magic of theater and acting. And man, you just explaining that, Amanda and I actually postponed our wedding to 2022 because we luckily had put down a deposit on a place here in Santa Fe right before COVID hit, and I thought that was like, oh awesome, and it was going to be for next fall 2021. I was thinking, yeah, I was slipped in there right in time. And then I was like thinking about it a lot more and more. I was like, wait a minute, this is not going to be like all done and fine by like next year at this time. Like it's unfortunately, I think we're still going to be, I think we'll have come up with different ideas. So maybe something we just haven't been able to have that idea yet to make us know like what we need to do physically for live theater. So it's coming, but it's like, I think this is still like our human selves are like really having to shift and grieve an old way of living and really try to find this new way of life. And I'm hoping that fall of 2022 is enough time for people to be able to gather and not feel unsafe,
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
right? And like to feel, travel and gather and feel safe. And I mean, we want that from our theater patrons too. I mean, if we didn't have our patrons, we don't have a show.
Yeah,
You know, we could do it for one person. It'd be fun. We could still do it. Because as we talked about with acting, there's this live, palpable chemistry for us too that we thrive on, but the audience is a huge part of that. So
yeah.
I know. I don't know.
Well, I'm yeah, I'm hopeful that yeah, just hopeful that we find a way to just navigate through this, as soon as we can. But yeah, it is interesting just to think about how we keep our connections going in the midst of it all. Mary
Right.
Beth, this has been just a wonderful, fascinating, thought-provoking, fun conversation with you. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you,
Um,
Scott. Thank you so much.
so
Thank you
appreciative.
for tuned in too.
Yeah, thank you all very much for joining us. If you are seeing this and you're not on our email list and you'd like to be to receive notices of our upcoming interviews and projects and productions, you can email me at ironweedsantafe@gmail.com and I'll add you to our email list. This interview and actually all of our previous 23 interviews are actually also on the Theater Santa Fe website. Thank you very much, Theater Santa Fe. That is at theatersantafe.org, theater with an R-E. They've got a tab, an online tab with all of our interviews on that. We're greatly appreciative. Feel free to share this video with each and all, and stay tuned for upcoming interviews. But until we meet again, stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you all very much for joining us. And Mary Beth, thank you very much again.
Thank you, Scott.
Take care, you all.